All right. Woo. What's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are enjoying your day. So, it's week 9. Ravens fans have had a couple days to get over the Steelers loss, and now it's time to move forward. We're heading up to Indianapolis to take on the Colts in what should be a great game. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a competitive matchup, and I can't wait to get into it. But before we get into that, I want to say this. After the performance from the Steelers game, I personally would like to see this team be in a lot more close games, just because I want to see them handle that situation a lot more often this season. I want them to be more battle-tested. Now, of course, you don't determine whether or not you're going to be in a close game or not. You just go out there and play your game. But me as a fan, I would like to see the Ravens in more close game situations, just to see how they'll be able to handle those type situations. Now, of course, if we go out there and blow a team out and, our offense puts up 40 points, I'm going to come out here, I'm going to hype that up and be like, you see how our offense was able to put up 40 points against that team's defense? Of course, if we're able to do that, I'm going to cheer. But for the most part, I feel like the Ravens would benefit if they're able to be in a lot of close games. Again, you don't determine that. You go out there and play your game. But as a fan, if we're in a close game, I would not have a problem with it. If we're in the close game against the Titans or the Steelers when we face off against them in Thanksgiving, I wouldn't be mad with that. Or even the Patriots, because the Patriots have a good defense. This is that offense. There's nothing there. But if we're in a close game against these teams over 500, I would not be mad with that. In fact, I want that to happen because I want this team to be more prepared for those type of situations. We're rarely in those type of situations, so when you get in those situations, you want to see what the team can do. And I feel like being battle-tested will definitely help this team moving forward, especially in the postseason. And if you think I'm being a little bit too crazy with saying this, I'm going to pose this question to you guys, and you can leave it in the comment section. Going up against an elite defense, with the game on the line, and needing to score a touchdown, how confident are you guys in our offense right now getting it done? Be honest. Do you have a high level of confidence that this offense, the one we're seeing right now, how confident are you guys in that offense marching down the field against an elite defense, down by 4 or 5 points, needing to score a touchdown to win the game? How confident are you guys in them being able to get the job done? Just based on what we've seen from this offense so far. Leave your answers in the comment section. If you honestly believe 100% that you're 100% confident they're going to be able to get it done, that's cool. Give me a reason why. If you say, yeah, we need some work, I have no confidence in them being able to do that, leave in the comment section. We'll talk about it. But anyway, let's get into this game. So, Indianapolis. I got to say this. The Colts this season are possibly the most underrated team of the season. I don't hear anybody talking about them, yet they're 5-2. This team is well balanced. They've got a special teams that's pretty good. They've got a great defense. How great is that defense? It's the number 2 ranked total defense in the league. They're ranked 2, and nobody's talking about that. In terms of run defense, they're also ranked 2nd. They've got a great defense. And offensively, they don't have a lot of weapons there. They still got Doyle, they still got Hilton, but for the most part, it's balanced. And the reason it's balanced is because Phillip Rivers is sharing the ball with everybody. Everybody on that offense eats. It's not just one main person. They're getting everybody involved. And that's what you like to see. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. These guys are going to be tough, especially that defense. Offensively, it's going to really come down to how Phillip Rivers plays. Speaking of Phillip Rivers, my friend, it's good to see you playing well again. We've kind of had quite an interesting relationship this past year. Now, for the most part, I have the ultimate respect for Phillip Rivers, future Hall of Famer. This guy played the New England Patriots in the 2008 AFC Championship game on a torn ACL. Not to mention, LT got hurt. That man on a torn ACL played up against that dominant Patriots team. And of course, they didn't win the game. But the fact that that man was willing and had the guts to stand right there in the pocket and deliver that ball with a torn ACL. Ultimate respect for Phillip Rivers. This guy's a future Hall of Famer. Give that man his credit. But what I was seeing last season with the Chargers, I just felt that Phillip Rivers, for the most part, was done. I didn't think he had anything left. And I felt like he should retire. But the man went to the Colts and said, I still got something left. And so far with the Colts, he's showing he's still got something left. Now he's still turning the ball over. I believe he has 10 touchdowns to 6 interceptions on the season. So he's still turning the ball over, but just not at that much of a high rate. He's still turning the ball over, but he's been playing well. In fact, his best game of the season was probably last week against Detroit. No turnovers from him, 3 touchdowns. They looked great. So Phillip Rivers is doing what he needs to do to help this team win, and they're standing at 5-2. So you got to be happy with what you're seeing if you're a Colts fan. I feel like with the balance that this Colts team presents, they can be a legitimate threat in the AFC. And nobody's talking about them. Everyone's talking about Kansas City. Everyone wants to bring Baltimore into it. Everyone wants to talk about Pittsburgh, and even Buffalo gets some love. But I don't hear anything about the Colts. Do not underestimate that squad. They are a good team that could honestly upset somebody. Oh yeah, also the Titans. They're talking about the Titans as well. Not as much as they should be, but they're still talking about the Titans. But yeah, this Colts team is it's definitely legit. So the Ravens are going to have to be on their A game, which is going to be especially tough because it has been a rough week for the Ravens. Let's start with the defense, man. Defensively, what do the Ravens need to do? Well, before we can actually get on the game plan, let's see what's going to happen with the several players that are on the COVID reserve list. Obviously, we know Humphrey's not going to play. He's going to be quarantined for 10 days, so he will miss this game. But there were several other players that were added to that list on Tuesday. Some of them included LJ Ford, Patrick Queen, Judon, Deshaun Elliott, and so on and so forth. There were several players there. However, they do have an opportunity to be able to play if they pass the test after 5 days of quarantine. If they can pass those tests, which probably will be taken on Saturday, they will be able to play Sunday's game. Granted, they're going to miss practice, which they've already done. They've already missed practice this week, obviously, but they'll still be able to play, which means we don't exactly know how they're going to be able to perform, but they're professionals, so they'll be able to handle it. And plus, I'm sure the coaching staff is doing the best they can to try and keep them up with what the game plan is for this week. So I'm sure the defense will be fine, but if some of them can't go, our young guys and our guys on the depth chart, they're going to have to step up and play big in this game, which I'm not too worried about. I think the defense will do good enough to win this game. Let's get on the game plan. Defensively, I think the one thing you want to do is force a turnover on Phillip Rivers. If you can force him to turn the ball over and cut him from his rhythm, Phillip Rivers will start to unravel for the most part. Phillip Rivers, in some cases, when he's on it, even right now, still in his career, when he's on it and not turning the ball over, he's a great quarterback. He's a really good quarterback. But once he starts turning the ball over, he starts getting in the habit of chucking the ball down the field recklessly, and that's where you can really take advantage of that. So try and force Phillip Rivers to make a mistake, because if you can do that, that will definitely help us. Of course, for the most part, you want to stop them. You don't want them to get any big plays down the field, so definitely be looking to do that. But for the most part, if you can force Phillip Rivers to turn the ball over 1 or 2 times, it should be good enough to help us limit what they do on offense. That's really what the defense needs to do. Obviously, you're going to want to stop the run. Obviously, you don't want to give up big plays. But the main thing you want to do against the Colts offense is force Phillip Rivers to turn the ball over. Because if you can break his rhythm and you get him in the habit of taking those risks and chucking the ball down the field and forcing turnovers, trust me, you will have a good time handling that Colts offense. They are balanced. They throw the ball to everybody. But with Phillip Rivers, he's the wild card. He's the X factor. If he starts turning the ball over, he's not really going to stop turning the ball over. That's just how it works for him sometimes. So that's really the only thing you want to see this defense do. Offensively for the Ravens, well, for one, we got to figure out our identity. I feel like I got to make a video about this at some point, maybe tomorrow or something like that. But for the most part, you got to figure out your identity. What we do best is run the football. And right now, it's kind of been a confusing mess as to how they want to do this in the passing game, in the running game, how many carries you want to give to this, how many passing attempts you want to do. Right now, our identity is supposed to be running the football. And we don't really have an identity this season. Some games you'll see Lamar pass the ball 37 times, and other times you're going to see us run the ball 40-something times. It's just like, there's no specific identity. I feel like for the most part, we got to find that identity. And the identity that works for us best, at least right now, is running the football. Now, Mark Ingram did not practice this week, so obviously it means that JK and Gus are going to be the 2 guys to go. And based on what we've seen from JK, he's probably going to be taking the majority of the carries. And I believe Greg Roman talked about it this week, saying that we're slowly trying to ramp up his involvement. And it really looks like the Ravens are starting to transition more into putting J.K. as their number one guy. So he'll probably be the one taking most of the carries against the Colts. And we know what J.K. can bring to the table. He's going to go out there. He's going to do his thing. He's going to be making plays, and he's going to be productive against this defense. Granted, it is a tough defense. It's the second-ranked run defense, but I feel like J.K. can be able to handle it, especially because he was able to run all over the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. He had over 100 yards on the Steelers defense. If he can run over 100 yards against the Steelers defense, I believe he'll be effective against the Colts defense for the most part. I believe so. So, gameplay for the most part, when it comes to the running game, feed Gus and feed J.K., but J.K.'s got to get more to carries because this guy right now is going off. In terms of the passing game, this is something we still got to figure out. But for the most part, what I'm trying to say is you got to get your receivers more involved. Get your receivers more involved. We haven't talked about this, though I talked about this on Joe Nubo's show when we were actually doing the whole Ravens therapy. Shout out to Joe, man. I had a fun time on the podcast. Great time on the show. Sutton, great job. I really enjoyed talking with you guys for the most part. It was a great time. We got to do that again. If things look bad, we might need another therapy session. So I hope to talk to you guys at some point in the future. Great guys. But yeah, when we were on the podcast there, we actually talked about Hollywood kind of, going on Twitter and tweeting his frustrations. And Lamar actually came out this week and talked about that and said that it's his job to get the ball to Hollywood and get him more involved in the offense. Part of that is the case. He's definitely got to throw the ball to him more. But the other part has to deal with Greg Roman getting his receivers involved. So this game, when it comes to passing, you got to get the receivers more involved. Get them more involved in the passing game. Seriously, we've got to start developing some sort of short passing game. Quick passes, screens, whatever you got to do, get that involved. Put the ball in the hands of Devin Duvernay and Hollywood Brown and let them take off. Get everybody on the offense involved, including Boykin. Because Boykin last week actually looks like he's finally on the same page with Lamar Jackson. And since he's finally on the same page, now let's try to get him some more looks. If he can continue to be consistent like that, it'll be nice. Willie Snead also looked great last week, so let's try to get him involved. And Mark Andrews didn't really do much, so we got to get him involved. He's our number one tight end. We got to get our receivers more involved in the offense. So the game plan has got to be focused. When it comes to the passing game, it's got to be focused to getting all your receivers involved. And that's what we got to do against the Colts. Colts secondary is pretty solid, so it's not going to be easy, but you've got players here to utilize. So let's utilize our players and get them involved. It comes down to Lamar Jackson. When it comes to executing, you got to be the guy to get them the ball. When it comes to play calling, Greg Roman has got the scheme to get the ball to his receivers. We've got to improve on this. It's now about that time. It's week 9, so we got to see the improvement. And most importantly, now we got to talk about this. We got to limit the turnovers, man. It's becoming a problem. We're turning the ball over every game, and we used to not be able to do that, For the most part, we would go games where there would be 0 turnovers from the offense because we were disciplined, we played well, and the offensive line was great. But Lamar Jackson's decision-making was great. He was more careful with the ball. He wasn't really turning it over. This season, however, that's not exactly the case. So for the most part, we got to limit the turnovers. We got to try to be smarter with the plays. Lamar has to be smarter with the decisions he makes, and he's got to be more careful with the football. He can't be fumbling it, and he cannot be throwing ill-advised picks. So he's got to be smarter. He's got to play smarter, and the team's got to execute on the passing game. Last but not least, the offensive line. It's going to have to be solid in this game, and they're going to have to block. Now, I like what I saw from the offensive line in terms of run blocking last week, because even though Stanley went out, the offensive line did a great job in terms of run blocking, and that's what helped our run game go off. Now, in terms of pass protection, there was not much of a difference when Ronnie Stanley went out. It was still not great, but in terms of run blocking, that actually improved. So, yeah, I hope the offensive line can continue that up. Yeah, continue to block in the run game and try to do better in pass protection, because Lamar needs time to throw the ball down the field. If we want to get these receivers involved, especially in the deep game, we need to be able to have time for him to throw the football. So the offensive line, you got to go out there and for the most part, give Lamar time to throw, protect him. Other than that, there's not much to say. Obviously, with the special teams part of the situation, we know what our special teams is. We're one of the best special teams units in the entire league. We know what we do. It'd be nice to see if we can get another kick return. We'll see what Prochet can do in the return game. But for the most part, we know what Tucker brings. We know what Sam brings. I don't have to ever talk about special teams because special teams is almost never a problem. So that's never something I have to be like going into a game. Okay, special teams got to kick the ball. No. Special teams is always great, so there's not much to talk about there. But for the most part, that's all I got to say. Now, in terms of the results of this game, how do I see it going? I believe the Ravens are going to win this game 27-20. I think this is the game Lamar Jackson and the offense get something going. Maybe they take away something from what they saw last week in terms of execution. When Lamar wasn't turning the ball over, the receivers were actually being productive. Like, this was a week where the receivers were actually showing up and being productive. It was just Lamar Jackson, for the most part, turning the ball over. So I think Lamar is going to be a little bit more cautious and a little more smarter with his decision making. I believe he's going to have a couple of touchdown passes. I also believe that, for the most part, J.K. Dobbins will find the end zone in this game. Gus Edwards, when he gets his carries, this might be a big game for him as well. So I believe the run game will be effective. I believe the pass game, for the most part, is going to be solid. Lamar Jackson himself, he's going to be a much better player this week than last week in terms of decision making. I believe Hollywood Brown will get a couple of looks early on. He's going to take advantage of that. I could see him finding the end zone. And I think Devin Duvernay, based on what we saw from him last week, he might get something down the field. We'll see. I think Devin Duvernay is going to be really involved in the offense this week, and it looks like they're going towards that direction. So I'm excited to see what the offense can bring. I want to see how they improve throughout the weeks because they still have the confidence that they can get to that level, and we got to support them. Obviously, we're going to critique the problems, but we're only critiquing the problems because we want to know what the problems are that needs to be fixed so that the team can focus on fixing them. And of course, they know their issues as well, which is why they're trying to fix them. So let's just see some level of improvement. Last week, in terms of the offense and the passing game, it actually showed improvement. It was just Lamar Jackson kept turning the ball over. Let's take away the turnovers and see what this offense can bring. I'm seeing the 27-20 game. I believe the defense also is going to find a way to pick off Phillip Rivers in this game at some point, and they're going to limit them for the most part. It's probably going to be a game where you see a little bit of dinking and dunking from Phillip Rivers, but they're going to chip away from our defense and maybe find the end zone maybe once or twice. But for the most part, I believe that the defense is going to do good enough to help us win this game. Anyway, that's all I got. Man, it has been a crazy week for the Ravens, and this game is going to be tough. They got to win this game, man. It's not going to be easy, but they got to find a way to win this game. We'll see what they do on Sunday. It should be an exciting one on the road in Indianapolis. That's all I got for this video, and we'll see what happens. I'm out of here, man. Peace. Go Ravens!